Hey guys, so I'm going to go over TEKS real quick for those of you that might not be as familiar with them or just want to know more about them. The two things you need the most to know exactly what to teach, because we have a whole lot to cover, is this. This is your layout of your TEKS. This is all your readiness, which are the green, and the supporting, which are yellow. And it's divided into four categories. The first one being history. It's like just your overall, main points of history. Your second category is going to be geography. So anything that has to do with the land or earth. You'll notice these go over just about every era. They're going to be a little more broad. Third category you're going to have is going to be government and citizenship. So you'll see that much more so in the Constitution era. And your fourth one is going to be over economics. So it's much more going to be with like Industrial Revolution. But it kind of goes throughout them. Just for those of you who don't know, there are 192 of those TEKS. If you ask any of your other friends that teach other subjects, they have about 60. So we have a whole lot to cover with very little time to do it. So how do you know what to teach? This is called a frequency chart. It'll show you how often each thing's been tested, each year it's been tested. So as you can see, these readiness, the green ones, are much more bang for your buck than these supportings, with the exception of about three. There's about three of these supportings that are like really big, almost tested every year. But for the most part, when you're wondering like what's the kid have to absolutely know before they leave my classroom, it's going to always be the readiness. You can find both your TEKS layout and your frequency chart at leadforward.com. If I was you, I'd definitely go there, go to resources. It's the best available. The other thing you can do there is to figure out better ways to aim towards it. So figure out like what specifically is it tested over? What does it look like? I've gone through, I have 2 binders full of questions that I printed out from the STAR. They're all available through Lead Forward. If you go through them, you can notice, for instance, they will look something similar to this. So if you look at the exploration colonization, the first era, it'll be laid out. It'll show you the test question every year. When you go through and you look at that, you'll see patterns of how it's been asked in certain formats. I went through, and one thing I did that helped me out quite a bit is I went and realized what were the main words that they would have in the answer or in the question that would connect most frequently. So I would go and I'd write them down. So I went and wrote them out. As you can see, this is my ugly handwriting. I did it just for me. So, but like the first one we would notice, so for instance, like with 3A, 3A is tested every year, and we notice that it has representative government always tied to self-government and distance. So, because they'll ask you, why was representative government created? Because of distance. And so because of that, you can go and you can help direct your teaching towards that to help the student out, because they have to get 23 of these things correct. But when you look at the percent, like the odds of like what's going to come up, you know, at the end of the day, the kid has to know roughly about 120 different separate items. So the more you can connect them, see the overlock, and you can see the frequency to see what is the biggest ones and how to word those words, like how to word it to be most exact for the student. That's really what's most beneficial. The last thing, my last piece of advice for you is also from Lead Forward that you can go find out, or you could be crazy like me. I went through every single test with every single question and counted how many of each era there were. It roughly comes out something like this. I haven't updated it because we didn't have a test this past year because of COVID. Roughly, though, you're going to get about 5 questions with exploration colonization, about 4 questions out of American Revolution, 8 questions out of Constitution, and 6 questions out of Early Republic. So if you give the same amount of time to American Revolution and about the battles as you do for the Constitution, you're going to be giving 4 questions the same amount of time and weight as 8 questions. So be thinking about that whenever you're going through it and figuring out what is the biggest bang for your buck, what your students are going to struggle with, and really figure out what's the easiest thing to get and that's what you focus the most on. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any kind of questions, just make sure you reach out. Bye, y'all.